Today what we're going to start to talk about is our midterm portfolio. So what we're going to be doing is going into each of our individual projects as a way of kind of reviewing, and we're going to be selecting the best pictures from each of the project. So the way that that's going to work is we're going to do a rating system. So as we go into the actual individual folders, we're going to be marking them with a 5-star rating. And this is the way that I like to do, just a kind of a quick way of, part of my workflow to kind of eliminate some of the images that maybe I don't necessarily want to delete, but aren't the ones that I'm going to want to move forward with and either show or kind of work on a little bit further. So what we're going to do is once we get in there, we're just going to mark it with a 5-star, meaning that that's the best picture from that folder. And then what we can do then is we'll create something called a smart collection, which will then bring them all together from all the different folders and bring them into one location so I can quickly kind of export them and then start to work on them. Okay, so let's take a look and see how that's going to go inside of Lightroom. So here we are inside of Lightroom. I've got some folders set up over here on the left. Yours are going to be under this section here that says actually folders. I've already kind of grouped them together in a previous one. So if I look at this one here, Cyanotype, right, that was your guys' first project. And then once I come in here, I'm just going to look at these kind of quickly so that I can determine, which picture is the best one. And whichever pictures I like that are going to be a part of my my collection, I'm going to go ahead and mark those with a 5-star rating. So down here, I've got the stars. I can just simply click right there and go ahead and say, well, I want that one to be a 5-star. Or if I'm going in through here, I like to just keep one hand on the keyboard and one hand on the trackpad or mouse. And so as I go through here, I might just decide, whichever one I like the best. I'm just going to go ahead and hit 5 on the keyboard, and that'll give me a 5-star that way. So I can just go through here. These are the exposures as we were doing them. There's one of the prints, and so on. So I can just mark whichever ones I like with a 5-star. Then if I switch to a different one, so this was part of the pictures from our ISO test. Here's a black and white version of it. And so if one of these are my favorite, I'll just again hit 5, and then I can move into the other folder. So I've got some panning, so I can go ahead and mark 5-star there. Let's see if we've got here's some blur, stop action. Let's see if there was I think all of these have a little bit of blur to them. Maybe backlighting or open shade. Maybe something like this for shadows. So anyway, I'll go through each of these, and I'm looking for pictures that are going to be the best picture for each of our different assignments that we've had along the way. So once I've gone ahead and I've collected all of those, then, because they're in different folders and different locations within the computer, normally I don't see them together. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to create something called the Smart Collection. So on the left-hand side here, underneath folders, there's a part that says collections. And so I'm just going to hit the plus sign. And then I'm going to choose the one that says create a Smart Collection. By default, the first one that it's going to do is a rating. So when you first open it up, it's going to say rating. And I've got some options here. Do I want the rating to be, being that it is, or is it greater or less than a certain one? In this case, since I marked everything as a 5-star, I can just do greater than or equal to, or I could just do is. Either way would work. And then along here, I've got these dots, so I'm just going to click on the 5th dot. Now, if I needed other criteria, I could also set things like, well, I only want them from certain folders, or I want them through a certain date range, or only shot with a certain camera. There's lots of ways we can change that. And then I'm going to go ahead and label this one Midterm Portfolio. And I'll say create. Now I'm inside the Midterm Portfolio, and you can see just the pictures that I've selected so far have shown up in there. So anything that's got a 5-star rating is now inside of this folder. And the little gear wheel over on the side means that it's a smart one, right? So what that means is that it's actively looking for things that meet the criteria. So if I go back into my normal collections or my normal folders, anything else that I go ahead and I mark, if I go in here and if I decide, this is stop action, say for instance, if I go ahead and mark that as a 5, and I look at, any other images as I scroll through here. Anything else, maybe, this might be, let's say this one is something I could use for maybe rule of thirds or something. So anytime I mark any of these files, then they're going to go ahead and they'll show up inside of my folder that I've got for my 5 stars, right? So now if I come back in here and I look at my midterm portfolio, those couple of pictures that I just selected, I'm going to go ahead and hit G on the keyboard, are now also been uploaded. So here's those 3 that I just marked. So because it's that smart album, it's actively looking and it's finding and it's grabbing stuff along the way to make sure that it fits inside there. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and upload these as like the original files because I'm not going to do any modifying or changing of them. So I'm going to do Command A on the keyboard and I'm going to go ahead and export. And it's going to a specific folder, Weebly Upload. So I'm just going to put a new name here. I'm going to call this Midterm Original. Now, because I'm putting original doesn't mean that we're talking about the full quality. We're still going to go ahead and shrink these down, but we're also going to talk about how to start to enhance the photos. So I want the original set so that I can see what did it look like straight out of the camera, and then what did I do to kind of modify or change it to enhance it a little bit, to give it a little more color saturation or brighten it up a little bit, or whatever it's going to require. So I'm going to go ahead and say export there. Once those get exported, then we're going to go ahead and take a few minutes and start to look at how we can start to develop our photos inside of Lightroom.